Hello, and welcome to a new episode of How to Build a Theatre, a podcast charting the creation of a new theatre in Brussels while looking at the wider theatre industry. My name is Edward Macmillan, the Artistic Director of the British Theatre.
My name is Phil Wilcox, professional singer and musician here in London, an old school friend of Ed's. Ed, how are you doing? I haven't seen you for ages.
I'm great, yes, I'm really good. You've been busy out here singing around the country.
Yeah, all over the place. But I'm keen to find out about the bridge and how, indeed, specifically, how Lungs went.
Yes, so we've just finished, actually 2-3 weeks ago now, just finished our second professional production, Lungs, a play by Duncan Macmillan. So that ran for 3 weeks in a venue called Reset, which is a temporary occupation in the centre of Brussels. I think I'm recovered from it, but it was a very intense period, as it can be. You know, it's not just when the play itself is running. I feel I'm a little bit on what's the word? I'm stuck on I can't because basically the whole period before is quite intense because you have the rehearsals and you have the setup and organizing everything and the auditions, etc. So like the month and a half, 2 months before is extremely intense, and then you have everything set up and the play is running, but it's not over because it's running. So you've got to make sure that everything's like okay, but you can't quite relax, but you're not really doing anything. So you're kind of in this limbo state while the play's running.
You're sort of stuck in high energy hiatus.
Yes.
Just seeing everything happen in front of you. And
yes, exactly.
hoping the building doesn't fall down.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's part of it because I feel responsible for what's happening there, and also because we are, you know, still at this early stage, we are the ones who are running all the front of house and making sure that's all okay. So that's like an extra kind of added source of anxiety, I guess.
Well, this is it. You take a lot on. It's perfectly understandable. I think you take a lot on for yourself. It's still a small organisation. You've got your team around you of really great support, but ultimately you're still chief. What is your official title? I was about to say your CEO, chief man, head honcho. There's a lot on your shoulders, isn't it?
Yes, and also I guess this is our second production, so it had to live up to the first production as well. So there was that kind of not that I didn't think that it was going to, because ultimately, again, we had a great play, we've got some great actors, we had a great director. So like just having those things will automatically make a great production no matter what, and that kind of takes a little bit of stress out, but you still kind of want to make sure that the audience is enjoying it. And I think what was interesting for me this time round with regards to the audience reaction was with Vincent River, which is a very visceral, very hard-hitting play. As you know, Phil, you saw it. People came up and came out of the production and they were like, wow, that was an amazing piece of theatre. Whereas in this time they came out and because it's Lungs is a lot, it deals with a lot of stuff, but it kind of wraps it in quite a light way of doing it. So people came out and they kind of feeling like, oh, okay, like this was great, like really enjoyed it, had a lot of fun doing it. But what was interesting is that then you speak to people afterwards and they had, amongst their friends group or with their partners or whatever, they had then intense conversations about the play because there's so much in the play. It's so nuanced and so much content packed in there that it takes it takes more time for people to kind of come out of that and to unpack what is happening in the place.
I remember, I saw a studio run, didn't I, of Vincent River when it was still being rehearsed over in the UK. I remember coming out of that feeling like I'd had a slap in the face, in ultimately a good way, in only the way that that theatre can, and it was wonderful. I remember walking out into saying goodbye to a couple of people, and then walking out into a fairly crowded part of London and just weeping for a bit because I sort of felt I needed to. There was something needed to come out. But then not all pieces will do that. Not all pieces have the same response, and that's going to be, I guess the broader your portfolio gets as a company, the more kind of reactions you're going to see on the outside. How were audience numbers, Ed? I wonder.
They were good. They were not what we had wanted, I guess. I mean, it's really difficult to know. I mean, a lot of people are saying that also the time we chose, so May specifically, wasn't the best time. You know, Brussels is a city that's extremely based on calendar, and in May there are a lot of holidays, public holidays, meaning that especially the kind of more affluent Euro crowd, who forms quite a lot of our base, they go away. And leave Brussels, so then they're not here, and so basically we were missing a lot of people, and that was kind of a little bit we kind of blamed that a little bit on the lower than wanted audience numbers, but then we did see them growing as the run went on, the audience numbers, as the word of mouth, as the word of mouth spread, more and more people came, and that's why for me it's always so important to basically put all the effort on the first few performances, because that's you know, once a performance is performed, then you can't sell that anymore. So you have to kind of try and get as many people early on as possible, and then they can spread the word. But yeah, what it wasn't quite what we wanted in terms of audience numbers, which is a shame. But okay, we can learn some lessons for that. Although I have to say, you know, we really did try as hard as possible to get the word out there. I really don't think we could have tried any harder. Yes, but you know, we're still growing our audience base, really. So yeah.
Did you manage to get to the point then? You speak about the intensity of the process leading up to the first performances. Did you have that moment of? I've certainly felt this when I'm in a sort of more coordinator or management role on projects, or preparing a concert or a piece or an opera or whatever, and then getting to that moment, and you just whatever it is, the little signal, the lights dim, the orchestra tunes, something happens, the hall goes silent, and you suddenly remember, oh yeah, this is what we've been working towards for the last 2 months, 6 months, a year. And did you manage? I mean, no matter how much, in 5 minutes time, if you're sat there watching, you think, how many people are in this room? I wonder if we're going to break even. I wonder if what's going to happen. Did you have at least 5 minutes of, oh yeah, this is what we do it for?
No, definitely did happen. I wouldn't say it's never at the beginning, because it's still too stressful. Because I'm just worrying about anything that could go wrong. But like, for example, there were a few moments. I mean, because I like to watch quite a lot of the performances, and I end up quite often watching the audience to see their reactions as well, which is always very satisfying. But there, in Lungs, for example, there is one specific moment in the play where every single night the audience would let out a big oh my god, and without fail, and that was a very enjoyable moment every single night, because you knew it was coming, like the actors knew it was coming, we all knew it was coming, and just that, it was just that sense of payoff of yes, we can evoke this reaction in people, this real, like, this surprise in people that they weren't expecting. That was really nice. And then towards the end, yes, we were getting standing ovations, which is also really nice when that happens very spontaneously. It's very satisfying. But I think the most rewarding thing is then speaking to people afterwards. I think and hearing what their reactions are to the play, and having that conversation, I guess, which is also which is why I love theatre so much, is because it spurs that conversations about what is theatre, not what is theatre, but what is this play about? What did you feel about it? What is your reaction to it as a man versus a woman in this case, because it was a very kind of gender specific play. So there were moments, for sure.
So I think it's about time that we meet our guest, Ed. Who have we got on this week?
Yes, I think that's a great idea, Phil. So this month, yes, it's a monthly podcast, Phil, not weekly. This month,
I can never tell. I can never be sure.
This month, we're delighted to have with us a gentleman called Fred Rossillion. I hope that's correct. And he is the sales and events manager at the Théâtre de Liège here in Belgium. So welcome to the show, Fred.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone.
Great great to have you with us.
Thank you.
Maybe just to warm up a little bit, Phil, would you like to kick us off with some quick fire questions?
Absolutely. Well, yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing what a sales and events manager does. I reckon it might be, as it says on the tin, but I reckon there'll be lots of extra exciting things that we'll learn about from you today, Fred. First of all, a little bit of a delve into your inner psyche, your essence and your being, with these very deep and mindful quickfire questions. We've just moved into some really hot weather over here. Do you do well in the heat, or do you operate cold?
It's actually at this moment in time it's quite warm actually. So we're struggling a little bit in this. This is an old building, so it's not great at all. But
does it really heat up during the summer?
Yeah. But at the end, at this period of the year, there's not much going on in terms of our program, because there's all the outdoor festivals. So at this moment in time, I'm more into renting the theatre for private events. It's mainly dancing schools. They're coming and they rent the place to do the annual show with with the granddad and with the parents and all that kind of thing. So it's more like the rental part of the business at this period of the year.
I reckon your work must be really seasonal, like it must change between summer and Christmas. Do you have a favourite season of the year?
Yeah, I quite like the autumn, because that's where usually we start in mid or end of September, and it's quite very busy because everybody's happy to come back to the theatre, and that's where we start the new season. And autumn is usually very busy in terms of program.
Are you an early bird or a night owl?
I would say early bird, definitely. Even though I work in a theatre, but
I bet that sometimes that's challenging when you've got really busy nights ahead of you.
Exactly,
as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's go last two then. What's the first thing you do in your day?
Read my emails and catch up with the latest, with the news and everything that needs to be responded quickly. It's all the proposals and it's mainly reading emails, and I also like to read the interesting newsletters that I receive. So it's part of reading the emails, but it's quite good for me to know what's going on in terms of local industries and politics, and especially around Liège. For me, it's very important.
Mm-hmm. Something maybe that sort of lights the fire of creation in you and getting going. What final quick fire round question? Do you have any hobbies outside of your work? What keeps you ticking over? What do you do at the weekend to get you coming back in on Monday morning and feeling?
I enjoy reading. I enjoy doing sports. So I do running and I play paddle. That's mainly, and I like cooking as well. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Fred, for indulging us on this. As usual, yes, we get a little taste of the person we're interviewing in these quickfires, so they're quite enlightening. I think maybe just to start the conversation. So, as we mentioned already, you are the sales and events manager at the Théâtre de Liège. I think it'll be useful because this podcast goes out internationally. So, first of all, maybe just to tell us a little bit about Liège and the theatre as well, and then going into a little more about what you do and how you got there.
Mm-hmm, absolutely, yeah. So, a very quick word about Liège, which is quite an ancient city, I would say, back to probably the Liège was already existing around 800, more or less. So we've had the French, we've got the Spanish, we've had the Dutch coming over. We were under the influence of the Dutch until 1830. So Belgium is existing since 1831, and Liège is a particular place in Belgium because, on one hand, in terms of economy, in terms of business, there's quite a lot of interesting industries and companies which decided to have their headquarters in Liège. So it's in terms of business, it's a very active city, but also in the whole region of Wallonia, in terms of culture, Liège is very, very active. With the Théâtre de Liège, of course, we've got the Philharmonic Orchestra, and we also have the Opera of Wallonia. All three in the same city, and also in terms of geography, Liège is really close to Luxembourg, is close to Holland, of course, and close to Germany. So that makes that we call this the U-Regio. That's like a triangle between Maastricht, Aachen, and Liège. That's like a triangle, and Liège is it's a very attractive region for companies to come in the city, and also. Liège is known for the nightlife, going out in the place called Le Carré, where we've got all them pubs, and people can go out and drink late at night, So that's it's a very, very active and very very interesting city, and it's been politics. Local politicians have done a hard work in positioning Liège on make it like more international, and over the last 10 years really a lot of efforts have been done to make the city much more attractive in terms of hotel. I mentioned the theater, the opera, and also rebuilding the city, because you used to have this very old-fashioned and a little bit dirty image, I would say, and now I hear more and more foreigners in the streets of Liège, and really there's a real appeal to come to Liège, I would say. So that would be it.
And I guess the theatre plays quite an important role in this renaissance of the city.
So Theatre of Liège, it's not only theatre, it's also dance. It's very modern dance, I would say. It's not the classical ballet, so that's what we have on the program, and our theatre plays a local, regional, national, and international role in the theatre industry and the theatre business. Basically on one hand, we are. I'm going to give you maybe a couple of numbers. So on one season from I would say mid-September until and mid-May, I would say. That means we have two venues, two halls. We have more or less 50 shows, 50 different plays, which are performed over the season, and that means 50 plays. Some of them are played several nights, so it's more or less between 200 and 250 shows per season. So it's a very, very busy place. So that means, between rehearsals, between rentings, etc., there's pretty much something every day in our theatre. The thing is, more or less 10 years ago, when the theatre, when all the renovation was finished, this has been financed by the public sector. So therefore, that's public money that we received. So we somehow feel like obliged. We feel like we have to make it accessible to everyone. That we need to show that the money we've been given has got a clear purpose. So that means that this building has got to live. We can't just say, okay, we'll have 2 plays a week and that's it, between 8 and 10 at night. So my director wants this building to be a living place from Monday till Sunday. So there's a lot going on over here. We've got exhibitions as well. We do festivals. We do concerts. We do all sorts of things because we want to say, okay, the money we received, we want to value it as much as we can. So if we're talking about how our theatre operate, it's on one hand we program plays which come from different companies. So basically these plays they've already been played before. So basically they come, They play and then they go. We book them for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 nights, and that's it. And the work is done. Thank you, bye-bye. And then on the other hand, we also have more or less over the 50 different plays on season. There are 10 plays more or less, which are what we call creations. And the creation, it speaks by itself, what it is. So that means that starts from scratch, basically. So we're on a time frame of between 2 and 3 years between the moment we receive the intention note from the how do you call this, the scene maker, until the first night the play is performed. And it can sometimes there can be between 2 or 3 years, because it takes quite a lot of time to write, to have all call them the costumes, is that right? All the scenery built. And usually that's a work not of one theater, that's several theaters working together. So that means that we put all the efforts together. That also means that not only one theater is taking the financial risk, so everybody's putting a bit of money, or it can also be labor. It can be people which are creating the scenery. The others are sewing all the costumes and all that kind of thing. So it's a collective work of different theater with the actors, and then once it's been played for the first time, that's a premiere, of course. Then usually they stay for 2-3 nights here, and then they start touring in Belgium, but also in France, because we're very lucky to have a neighbor country which speaks the same language as us. So that means all the troops can go abroad and play abroad. So that's. There's another place here called Le Forum, and we haven't got the same positioning at all. That's also like a theater, but they have more concert, and they've got that's more popular. I'm not saying this in a bad way, but it's just a different sort of positioning, which is more popular. It's concert with big stars coming over. We are more like I'm not going to say high-end positioning, but it's a little bit more
a different point in the market, you might say.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's how we position ourselves, basically. And in terms of audience, we are the first one in Wallonia, which means that we've got more or less per season 80,000 people coming in and watch. It's 80,000 tickets sold over a season.
It's interesting, isn't it? You've set out there a really clear sort of example of how theatres work as a network, even across countries, which I think is really exciting.
Absolutely.
I was thinking about what you were saying about it sounded as if you set out about 20% of your work is produced in-house, but also in collaboration and sometimes support with other theatres, and then of course that work goes on to tour with other theatres. And even you say that another theatre in the same town, it's so important for us, for arts organisations, and it might be a little bit confusing maybe to hear from people who might work in more of a corporate sector, but it's not competition, is it? It's you're not competing with each other. You are making a richer fabric of society, or making more opportunities for people. The same audiences will come and see both things, and different audiences will go to different types of events, isn't it? It's less about competition and more about the fabric of a culture.
Yeah, but you've just mentioned one word, which is exactly how we operate, and it's network. Whether local or international, we really operate, and for us it's very important, to work with the network of other European theatres. It's not only French-speaking theatres. We've got contacts all over the place, all over Europe and all over the world as well. We're very active with South Korea, for example. We also have got some contacts in China, mainly with European countries. We're very active with Portugal, for example, with Germany, Spain. We do a lot of, and as I mentioned, it's not only theatre, it's also dance, and but it happens as well that we've got a Spanish-speaking play coming to us, and we've got it's not subtitles, it's above, so I don't know what to call this, but you've got the subtitles so that you can understand what's going on. It's so for us it's very important to to operate with other theatres, as I said.
Of course, that's sustainable as well, isn't it? In the times where lots of conversations going on about green theatre and sustainable theatre, collaboration, sending productions between theatres, making links like that even across the world. It's we're ahead of the game in many respects.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely, yeah.
So maybe you've set out really nicely. The theatre's role in general. Maybe we could go a bit more specific into how you fit into the picture then. How do you contribute to this quite dynamic, very networked theatre that is in Liège?
Yeah, on my end, as I mentioned, I've got this sales function really. So that's how I arrived in the Theatre of Liège, and so it's really I mentioned earlier, renting the place. That's one part of the business, and then another part of the business for me is just to look for different how can I say this, to look for sponsors, so that to grow a network of industries and companies which are going to support our business, because we receive money from the state of Belgium, so the state, from the region of Wallonia, from the city of Liège, but it's not enough really if we want to make our cultural mission longer and lasting for we really need other sources of money, and that's my job, where I'm very much in contact with big companies all around. I mentioned that Liège was on a business point of view is a very active city. So for me it's very important that I grow this network of these companies which are willing to give us money to be able to make it work and to make it even more performant, and to be able to carry on the work that we do. So that's basically the sales aspects of my background that was appealing to the theatre.
And I guess as well it speaks to that element. Just a quick glance at the website, and you look at the bottom in some of the services, as the website puts it. So much. Ed and I, certainly in the earlier episodes of this podcast, talked about what he wanted, what he saw the bridge being, which was more than just the physical space. I mean just as in only the physical space, but as being a sort of community space, cafe, place that could be rented, a physical space in itself, but also the idea, the collaboration, the network. And it just, looking at the bottom, you've obviously got your theatre, what you're presenting in the theatre. You've got a certain element of corporate in there, VIP, evenings. You've got schools, I assume that's education projects coming into, but also maybe going out into the community. The cafe, the bookstore, a babysitting service, a restaurant. It's a whole city in a microcosm.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, we play a role in the city, and we also there are 75 persons working in the theatre, so that means that 75 families which live thanks to what we do. So it's it's very important for us to offer. I'm not going to say an end-to-end solution, but a complete package for all sorts of publics, because audiences. We haven't got one audience. We've got of different audiences in the theatre, We've got people, being the age 20, 25. We've got older people. We've got people who like to eat at like the posh restaurant, or the people who like the friendly atmosphere of the cafe. And so it's very important for us to reach the broadest population, as many people as we can, really.
Maybe moving to the relationship then with your private sector partners, and how do you think they view the theatre, or what is their perceptions of theatre when you're approaching them and you're trying to develop the relationships?
First of all, I think they don't exactly know what we do, so that's why it's very important to explain what we do, how we operate, what are our missions. It's not limited to play theatre 3 nights a week. It's much more than that, as you've just mentioned. So it's first of all, it's very important to explain them what we do. And another aspect of the relationship is the fact that if they do it because they are convinced of the benefits that they're going to get from it, and it's not having their logo at the bottom of a poster or on a website. It's more than that. It's in terms of towards their own employees, for example. It's very important that they pass the message across that they are supporting the culture, they are supporting the theatre. So in terms of image, for them, it's quite important to show that as an actor, they also can do something else than producing goods or services. That it's much more than that. That's this environmental responsibility and social responsibility. Everybody has heard about that. So for them, they give. It's very important for them to know that they can support us through the money that they give us. And one point which also is important is when we explain what we do with the schools. We've got it's very important. We work also as a network, another network of schools we work with, and we do all sorts of different actions with them. Some of them is just we bring them to the theatre. It can be very little kids, being 6 years old, and explain them basically what the scene is, what the light is, what the microphone is, an actor, and it's very, very basic. Or it can be with older young adults, I would say, being 16, 18, then they come to see the play. There's work which is done up front, and there's work which is done afterwards with the teachers. They go more into deep analysis of what's the message that was passed across, during the play. And it's very important for us to make them aware of the important it is to attend theatre. It can be cinema, it can be opera, on one hand, and also I think it's a way to open the mind as well. Just to discover the world of theatre. What are the values that we promote and that we defend? Doesn't mean necessarily that they have to agree with it, but also, as I said, opening their mind to it and trying to understand, how it works. And I think it's part of our cursus, I would say, just to go when they are going to be adults, to be able to talk about theatre, to be able to talk about cinema. And it's also important that on the other hand, this public might be tomorrow's audience. That means if you already make them aware of, if you can I say this, you bring their attention to the theatre. They might come back later when they're adults to the theatre. So that's a whole process, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, work with schools is super important, and I think the skeptic might look at it and say, only from the point of view of bringing in the future audiences. But if you actually unpack that, as I think you're doing there, Fred, is you're actually asking the question, what sort of society do we want to live in? And yeah, you can get quite sort of philosophical about it all, but in reality, it's via the arts that we feel things, that we really experience life, and you can explore it from different points of view safely and openly and creatively, and it's those sorts of questions that you're sort of asking. It's not just sort of setting up a financial, making sure bums on seats for the next season, is it? It's actually a much deeper thing than that. How easy do you find it is to? Easy is the wrong word. How do you go about explaining to someone from a corporate point of view? Obviously, you're talking to a human, so I suppose it's you're not talking to a robot. How do you sort of go about convincing them, explaining to them that this is something that the theatre in itself is something that they want to invest in, time wise and money wise?
Yeah. So I mean, in terms of the sales process, for me, it's very important to. Again, I'm going to use the same word, but to have my own network. So it's very important for me to attend and to grow this community, I would say. I really believe in one-to-one meetings and having special time with people, taking the time just to convince them and to as I said, for me it's very key to explain them what we do, how we operate, what our missions are. So it doesn't work with everyone. Some of them are not interested, and they say, okay, which is fair. At the end of the day, some companies will say, yeah, it's not what you do, but I'd rather support, I don't know, a local sports team, basketball or tennis or whatever. So. Yeah, for me it's quite important to take the time and to explain them into details what we do and what's the benefits that they could get from it. Because supporting us is, as I mentioned, in terms of the image inside their own companies, but they also, of course, they get they've got something in return in terms of they've got VIP evenings where they can take some nice clients. They get free tickets to come and see the shows. We're also we're doing like season introductions where we go into the companies, and we've got like a meeting with the employees, and we just present our season to them so that they can select the shows that they want to. And but it's very a lot of human interaction, I would say. For me, it's it's how I work and how I believe it should. I mean, I don't pretend, I'm the best one in my sector. I just, for me, I truly believe that having this human interaction is very important, and to first of all to build the trust and to have some credibility, and then be able to take the time and explain what we do, and at the end of the day, convince them to help us.
And have you seen any change over? You've been working on this for the past 10 years, correct? Have you seen any change in the way that companies view the theatre in that time, and especially post-COVID?
So we've got a couple of companies who have been following us and supporting us for a couple of years, and I see that at the beginning they were a bit curious and they thought, okay, let's do it and see what we get from it. And now they're really keen on finding out what the new season is going to be, so that they are much more into it. That's on one hand what we've noticed, and it's been. And on the other hand, it's been a little bit difficult after the COVID. Yeah, when we went through the COVID for almost 2 years, 2 seasons. There's one season where we played 4 times, I would say, not more. Yeah, that was awful. That was around November 20 until June 21. We didn't play anything at all. That was very, very difficult, and in terms of business, the COVID has been also very difficult for these companies, and most of the business sector has suffered the COVID. So some of them, they said, okay, we're not going to be able to support you any longer. It's, we've got to make choices. So yeah, it took a good 1 year, I would say, after the end of the COVID, to have them back, or to have new companies, come in and joining us. Now it seems, even though we've had this crisis last year, and because of the war in Ukraine and the inflation, but for me at this moment in time, I'm very happy. I managed to get new 4 or 5 companies supporting us. And that's very important. And for me, it seems now, hopefully, that the business is back to normal, I would say. But also, as you know, now we need to keep them with us, which is also very important. So it's a daily job. It's not meeting them once every 4 months, and I should say it's like not maybe daily job, but weekly job, to keep in touch and be in contact with them all the time, and that's very important.
It speaks to sort of as it ever was, isn't it? It's patronage of the arts. The arts has always, in time immemorial, relied on a certain amount of patronage, because ticket sales never, will never quite fully cover the costs. Certainly, if you're running a massive operation like you are, there's a lot of money involved in it. It might not be quite your area, so don't worry if it's not. But what you do in sales and events, bringing in capital and support from local companies, institutions, also maybe a certain amount of logistics, like you say, you've mentioned you hire the space out occasionally as well. This will all go alongside, as you've mentioned, centralised funding, government funding and local council funding. I assume that's a sort of equilibrium. So that's your backbone, and I guess that was really important perhaps during COVID, that backbone funding, that local and council funding and government funding continued, where companies would have reined it in. But of course, I assume the sort of centralised government funding is just that. It's the sort of backbone, but it's not necessarily going to let you flourish. Does that make sense?
No. Yeah, it makes sense, and you got to be fair. If we hadn't had that money from the government, we would be dead, definitely. We would have had to close down, and it was for us very key to have during the COVID that the local and the regional governments supported us. Most of the companies that sponsor us also stayed with us. As I said, some maybe after the COVID dropped out, but none of them that was quite, I would say, amazing. None of them let us down during the COVID. They said, we'll stand behind you, and for us it's very important to know that you keep on, because it's during the COVID, we didn't broadcast anything, because all the theaters were closed, but the creation carried on during the COVID. So that was also important to have this money coming in, just to support all the troops and to support the actors, the technicians, so basically the whole sector had to have this money.
Perhaps one final question. Related to, you said actually earlier that it requires constant attention, I guess. It's like developing these relationships with the private sector actors. Where is the balance of effort, I guess? I guess it's then worth it. It's obviously this is consuming a lot of your time. From a theatre point of view, there must be a payoff at some point.
Yeah, it's taking time because whenever you want to meet a CEO or even financial director, it's not happening like this. That's why it's very important for me to be at certain events, in certain key events at the Chamber of Commerce, but also as I mentioned earlier, for me that's not quick sale and that's it, job done. For us, it's very important to build the confidence and and the trust and to work on the long term. For me, we don't want to work like only on one season. For us, it's very important to be able to build this over a period of time, which is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years. And also as for us, where it pays off as well, it's in terms of it's interest, I would say, from the companies, where at the beginning they will go, as I said earlier, okay, let's do it and see what we get from it. And now it's a different story. It's a different way of interacting, where they come to us before even. Usually we publish the season at the beginning of June. We say, okay, next season is going to be. Then we do all the printings and all that kind, and we've got introductions to the season taking place into a theatre. And before even that happens, I've already got companies calling me, say, yeah, when do I get the new program? What's gonna be interesting, because we want to attend the show. And there you realize that you managed to create something inside the company, inside people's mind, and then it's not only me, it's mainly the team managed to create this awareness and this interest, this curiosity into people, which for me is okay. Money is of course very helping, but also that's an added value, I would say, to my work. Really, it's that I managed to achieve that, and for me it's very important.
Yeah, no, that must be a really nice feeling, I can imagine. Thank you so much for coming on today. It's a real
Thanks to you too. It was nice.
Yeah. And Phil, thanks as well.
Pleasure.
And we'll see you all.
See you next week. Have fun.